But it feels like I'm falling, like my airplane is stalling, falling into my calling. I want it to immerse me. Don't put me up. I'm just falling. I'm just falling.
Grace and peace. Happy GODfident Mondays. 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 10. The Lord came and stood there and called as he had before, Samuel, Samuel. Samuel answered, Speak, your servant is listening. Rise up, family. Rise up. In the scripture, we understood that what happened was a perfect example of cause and effect. We have the mother of the prophet, a phenomenal prophet, Samuel, who understood that what she said to God wasn't just something that needed to be word service, but something that she needed to also exude through her action. When she went to God because she was failing to be able to have child and she was barren, she promised to God that if God would bless her with the child, that she would send and present the child back to God. See, the problem many times is we find ourselves in situations where we're constantly in the mix of what our next step should be. And we find ourselves going to God and promise him things that we'll do on our end that we end up not fulfilling. I need you to understand that our God operates from a place of cause and effect, that the scripture that says you reap what you sow, God means that. God also meant in Samuel chapter 2 that those who honor me, he will honor them. Right? What that means is that how you submit to him, how you commit to him determines how he reacts to you. There's a direct cause and effect relationship that takes place between our relationship with God. And I love this story because the foundation that the mother of Samuel laid for Samuel was able to perpetuate and continue on through his life. Because of the mother's sacrifice by submitting and recommitting Samuel back to God, Samuel was then raised not only to fear God, but to have relationship with God. So now in 1 Samuel chapter 3, when God was calling him, Samuel was then in position to not only receive and hear from God, but to respond to God. I need you to understand that in Samuel chapter 3, verse 10, after Eli had told him, when God calls you again, tell him that your servant is here and ready to receive, that he didn't just say that in verse 10, but he lived it in the verses thereafter. For you see, at the end of chapter 3, it said that God went with Samuel wherever he went. And that's because what Samuel was willing to do and commit to is something that at many times we'd rather be inconsistent in at feet with our relationship with God today. We'd rather pull God up when we feel like it. We'd rather go to God earnestly when we're fearful of COVID and situations taking place around our situations. But when we feel like we're good, we'd rather focus on living our best life outside of committing our best selves to God. Well, God says it's time to rise up. Because in rising up, he needs us to get out of bed. He needs us to be willing to respond to the call like Samuel was willing and able and capable of doing, because at many times we're sleeping. God is calling us out of bed and we're turning over because we're sleepy. We're turning over because we're tired. And why are we tired? Because life's situations and circumstances and trials and tribulations have left us depleted. The enemy intends to perpetuate life struggles. The enemy intends to perpetuate those traumas that we've endured and experienced in the first part of our lives, just so we could have a reason and excuse to have enmity, conflict, a wall, a barrier between us and God. So once again today, I say rise up, because God is calling for his people, because we're pushing for quality in 2023, and quality starts with the cause and effect. It starts with the action that you take so God can then cause the reaction. Grace and peace, family.